Hi, my little math buddies. Welcome back. Today we are introducing the Gauntlet. Now, the Gauntlet is it kind of looks a little bit like your daily rigor warm-up, and it does a similar thing. It's going to help us with getting close to the math star and just practicing everything that we need to be practicing as we prepare to get closer and closer and closer to star, so that you guys can be as successful as possible. So we are going to just be doing these as warm-ups each time on your math block so that you can keep getting the practice. Now, each math gauntlet, it's not going to look the exact same, so just be prepared for that. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with number 1. So Mr. Vega's monthly expenses exceed his monthly income. To help balance his budget, Mr. Vega should first consider. So I've read it once, and I'm thinking that I should probably read it again because there were a couple words in here that kind of just stood out to me. But first I'm going to notice this one. Exceed. So Mr. Vega's monthly expenses exceeded his monthly income. To help balance his budget, Mr. Vega should first consider. So balance and first consider. Let's break it down here on our sheet where we're gonna show our work. So I got number 1, and we're gonna write exceed. And we're gonna just explain what exceed means. So exceed means to go over. To go over something, like it's spilling over, it's just too much. And then we have balance. Now, balance means to make it equal. We need it equal on both sides, like each weight of something is the same amount. So let's go back over and read it again, but with those definitions. So Mr. Vega's monthly expenses go over his monthly income. He wants to make his budget equal. How's he going to do that? Well, what should he consider first? What is the first thing that Mr. Vega needs to look at? Well, first we need to look at this model that we have. And it says that his monthly income is $1,975. So let's go ahead and make that note over here on our practice worksheet over here. His income is $1,975. His monthly expenses, we got to note the monthly expenses since, well, they're what the problem is. So let's go ahead and write out our monthly expenses for Mr. Vega. Ooh, can't forget my dollar sign when we're talking about money. There we go. All right, now that we have the monthly expenses written out, let's go back and take a look. So we need to figure out how to help Mr. Vega balance his budget and what should be the first thing that Mr. Vega looks at to consider what he should do to help be equal to his monthly income instead of going over every month. So we have buying less healthy food each month, finding a cheaper house to rent, asking his boss for a $50 raise, and spending less money on entertainment. Let's go back over here and let's add up our expenses. I want to see how much Mr. Vega is actually going over on his expenses. So let's go ahead and add up the expenses. So I'm going to do 825 plus 425 first. And after adding it, I get $1,250. Now I'm going to take that and start another addition problem here, and we're going to add 275 to this total. Got 5, 7, 5, we got 12, carry the 1. Now we have a total of $1,525. Now we're going to start the next addition problem. And we're going to add our 500. That's our last expense for Mr. Vega. So remember, we're trying to find the total amount of expenses that he has, which ends up being $2,025. That's a lot of money. So our total expenses for Mr. Vega that he spends each month is $2,025. Excuse me. Don't forget your dollar sign when you're using money. So something that interests me is that now that I have my total monthly expenses, I want to subtract his income from it and see how much he actually is going over, because he looks fairly close. All right, so we have a smaller number on top. We need to go over to our neighboring numbers and grab from them to see what we need. So we can't take anything from the 0 because it's 0. So we move over to our neighboring 2, and we're going to make our neighboring 2 a 12. Oh, sorry, excuse me. We're going to make our neighboring 2 a 1 because we're taking away from it. And then we're giving that to the 0, which is going to make it 10. And we're going to take away from the 10 now and make it a 9 and give to this 2 to make it 12 so that we can correctly subtract from it, which we get 5. And when we finish our subtraction, we find out that Mr. Vega goes over his budget by $50. It's not a lot, but the whole point is that he wants to, balance his balance. So let's start looking at what we should first consider. So first we have A, buying less healthy food each month. Well, we kind of need food to survive. So I don't think that should be the first thing that Mr. Vega looks at. Finding a cheaper house to rent. Well, that's kind of a long process, and that may be one of the last things he does. Asking his boss for a $50 raise. Well, that makes sense, but I don't know if it's quite the first thing. So let's look at D. We won't quite eliminate C just yet because we're still not sure. So D, spending less money on entertainment. Well, that might be something. Let's look at our chart up here. Mr. Vegas spends $500 on entertainment each month. That's more than he spends on food. I think that Mr. Vega could possibly take away from spending so much money on entertainment rather than going and first asking his boss for a $50 raise. So we're going to go ahead and move on to number 2. So the answer was D for 1, and now we're going to move on to number 2. Number 2, a rectangular prism is partially filled with cubes as shown here. What is the volume of the prism in cubic units? Let's first go back and highlight any words that stand out. Well, first of all, rectangular prism stands out to me because that is one of our geometry shapes. And then we have volume and in cubic units. Well, let's go over to our showing work page and write this out a little bit so we can see it a little bit more clearly. So for number 2, we are focusing on a rectangular prism. Now, we also know that we're working with volume. We know that our typical formula for volume is V equals base times height. But to get the base of something, we typically have to do length times width. So what we can do is we can pull down this H, and our new equation can be V equals length times width times height. So let's go back to our original Gauntlet page and let's look for the length, width, and height of our rectangular prism. So what I want you guys to remember is that this side right here is length, this is width, and this is height. By marking it, it's going to help us a whole lot better to see it clearly. I also really want you to remember that when we're talking about cubic units and when we look at cubes, each cube is 1. So let's go ahead and count our cubes. We can't stop at 7. We got to count our little friend in the corner here. So our length is 8. So let's go ahead and make that note on our work page. Make it a little bit clearer for you. There we go. Our width. Can't forget the little guy in the corner. Yes, we count him again for width. And then our height. Yes, we have this little friend in the corner who we have to count each and every time. We don't only just count him once. So let's go ahead and fill in our height. Just 3. Now let's go ahead and plug it on into our equation. So we have volume equals length times width times height. So we have 8 times 4 times 3. So I'm going to break it down because there's no way I can multiply 3 numbers at once. So I'm going to do 8 times 4, which equals 32. And then I'm going to do 32 times 3, which equals 96. I'm going to double check my work over here on the side just to make sure that I remember this multiplication fact correctly. 2 times 3 is 6, and 3 times 3 is 9. So yes, I was correct, and I checked my work, and I'm all good to go. So the answer is V equals 96, but that's not where we stop, is it? We have to look back and see what the measurement is. Well, here in the question it says in cubic units. So what we would write is cubic units. That's our measurement. Now, what about if the picture had measurements like centimeters? What would our answer look like? Well, it would look like this. It would look like V equals 96 centimeters cubed. The cubed is very, very important. We cannot forget it when we're looking at volume. But for now, in this question, our answer is 96 cubic units. Nope. 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 Yeah. All right, let's move on to number 3. Now, number 3 is a little tricky, and it's all about visual, so make sure that we are paying close attention. So, number 3, Melanie eats 1.50 pounds of cereal each week. Which model below best represents the number of pounds of cereal she eats in 0.50 weeks? Well, we clearly see that we have some base 10 blocks. And now we know that each of these blocks, they go 10 by 10, which 10 times 10 is 100. So we know that each of them equals 100. Oh my goodness, I almost forgot. We got to highlight some important words here. So first we needed to make sure that we highlighted how much she really eats each week. And then we can also highlight model and best represents, because those are some key words in there. And then we need to highlight the fact that we need to know how much she would eat in 0.5 weeks. My goodness, I could not forget that step. Always got to show our evidence. All right, so back to this. I want you guys to think about this, that each one of these blocks is 100. So if we have 2 of these blocks, that would give us a total of 200, because each one is 100, and 100 plus 100 is 200. I also want you to think about the 1.50. Let's look at that one first, and let's make sure that this model best represents it. So the 1, that stands for the 100. So we're going to go ahead and color in this whole block, because we know that that one is representing the 100. Now we got to make sure that this side is representing the 50. So we're shading it in half of the color to represent our 50, our half. Well, now we need to look at the 0.50. I'm going to change my color here so we can change it to a different color. And we know that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's half of it. We're going to color that in. And so I see that I am breaching over into the next one because that is also half. Now, I really want you to look at the fact that where the purple and the coralish color come together. And that makes one whole color, so that darkens it even more, just like how it had it in the original picture. So this one, A, it definitely looks like it could be correct, but we cannot just leave it here. We might have been wrong, and we might see another one that's correct. So let's leave it blank and move on. So let's look at C and the 1.50 and see if it matches. Well, first of all, this doesn't match automatically because this is missing. This whole one would be one whole color because we would have put two colors on it, but we didn't. So let's look at B. Well, this one's whole blank. That's definitely not it. We still have a blank piece. And then D is just being ridiculous and silly. So our answer was A. Now, number 4 is going to be a preview for what we are going to start in our next unit. So just bear with me on this one and just pay attention to what I'm going to tell you on some of the keywords. So using the tip of his finger, Peter wants to find the location of the ordered pair 4, 5 on a coordinate plane, which best describes the 2 steps Peter should follow. Ordered pair is going to be a very important one as well as coordinate plane and the first 2 steps. So I'm going to show you what a coordinate plane is. Well, here, let me draw it a little bit thinner for you. This here is a coordinate plane. This is all you kind of really need to know for right now, except the fact that an ordered pair it's kind of a spot on the coordinate plane. So the 4, 5, it's a spot on the coordinate plane. It's an ordered pair on the coordinate plane, and we need to figure out which one best describes the first 2 steps that Peter should follow. So let's go ahead and let's make sure we really want to focus on the first 2 steps. Those are like our huge key words there. So automatically I see that this says origin 5, 5. Well, you don't know it yet, but I know that our origin, it's in the center of the coordinate plane and its ordered pair is 0, 0. So I automatically know that F is not the correct answer. So let's look through the rest of them because it looks like the rest of them also say ordered pair. Or origin, excuse me. This one, so F and H are definitely not correct. So let me look at G and J to see if they are correct. Well, when you are on a coordinate plane, you always start from the origin. And you always go to the right first, and then you go up. So let's look at which answer choice matches that. G says place your finger on the origin and then slide it right. F said to slide it up. So our answer is G. Remember, guys, you're not going to know that one right off the bat because I have not taught it to you yet. That was just a sneak preview of kind of what you're going to be learning soon. Ooh, my goodness. I see on number 5 that it says numerical expression. I already know we need to come over here and explain some stuff. So, numerical expression. Numerical expression, when we're looking at these, this is when we bring out our GEMDAS, or as some may know it as PEMDAS. I grew up with it as PEMDAS, but they have changed it to GEMDAS. So we're going to be focusing on GEMDAS. So the G stands for grouping. Okay, this is where your parentheses or your brackets are. We have E, which is your exponents. And it's kind of like the little cube that you have up here, except it's typically next to a number and not a measurement. Our M stands for multiplication, D stands for division, A stands for addition, and S stands for subtraction. So let's go back to the question, and let's write down our numerical expression so that we can work through it. I'm writing out my expression here. So the first thing we should look at is if we have any G. Do we have any grouping? Well, we do. We have parentheses and a bracket. So I already completed the 9 divided by 3, which is 3, and I brought down the 3 and brought down the 63, which now creates just a bracket, and I still have to complete that. And 63 minus 3 is 60. Now I'm bringing down the times 8, and I'm timesing 60 times 8, which is 480. Whew, that was fast. So our answer is 480, but we have this kind of bubble sheet. So I'm going to show you how it's correctly written. Since there is no decimal, you write it as a whole number in front of the decimal. You only have the decimal if you have a decimal. We have a whole number. So you write your whole number, and then, we gotta bubble that a little bit cleaner. There we go. And you have to make sure that you bubble in the number that is up top on that place value. All right, my sweet friends. So this is your introduction to the Gauntlet. It's very similar to the daily rigor that you've been doing. You're gonna get random questions each time. Just do your best. And if you don't remember something, take that time to ask me, please, so I can help you. The whole point of doing this is to make sure that you guys are as prepared as possible for the Math Star. All right, you guys, have a good day. Bye.